For 6 long years, Amaka worked in Lagos and sent money home every single month. School fees, hospital bills, house repairs. She gave almost everything she had to the people she loved. But when she finally came home, she received the last thing she ever expected. Her own family called her a liar. And what Amaka discovered next would tear her family apart. Amaka stood inside her family home with her suitcase beside her. She had imagined this moment so many times. She imagined her mother's embrace. She imagined Chinedu running toward her. She imagined finally resting after 6 exhausting years in Lagos. But instead, Mama Nneka stood several feet away, looking strangely uncomfortable, and Uncle Obinna sat nearby, watching Amaka carefully. Something was wrong. Amaka pulled out her phone. "Please, Mama, I sent money every month. You know that." Mama Nneka shook her head. "Amaka, what money are you talking about?" Amaka froze. "What?" Mama Nneka repeated herself. "We didn't receive all those things you're claiming." Amaka stared at her mother. 6 years. 6 years of sacrifice. And now, they were telling her she had imagined everything. Amaka started listing everything she had paid for. Chinedu's school fees. She raised another finger. Your medical bills. Another. The roof after the storm. Her voice became quieter. "I sent that money because I believed my family needed me." Uncle Obinna suddenly interrupted. "Maybe you didn't send as much as you think." Amaka slowly turned towards him. That sentence didn't sit right with her. Not at all. That night, Amaka couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned on her old bed. Then suddenly, she heard voices outside. Amaka sat up. She quietly walked toward the door and opened it just a little. She heard Mama Nneka speaking. Then she heard Uncle Obinna mention something about an account. Amaka's eyes widened. An account? What account? She stayed there silently, listening, and for the first time, she began to suspect that her family wasn't telling her everything. The next morning, Amaka couldn't let it go. She remembered something from 6 years earlier. Her mother had opened a savings account, an account where the money Amaka sent home was supposed to be kept, so Amaka asked about it. Mama Nneka denied knowing anything. Uncle Obinna denied it too. Amaka almost laughed, not because anything was funny, but because the answers were beginning to sound too rehearsed. Amaka finally decided to stop asking questions. She would find the answers herself. She grabbed her handbag, gathered her documents, and headed straight to the bank. No more guessing, no more arguments. She wanted proof. At the bank, Amaka met a bank officer named Adaeze. Amaka explained everything. Adaeze listened carefully before checking the records. For several moments, she said nothing. Then she looked at Amaka. "There is an account under your mother's name." Amaka's heart skipped. "So it exists?" Adaeze nodded. "Yes." And suddenly, 6 years of unanswered questions had a starting point. Adaeze continued checking the records. Amaka watched the computer screen. Then came the first shock. The deposits matched the amounts Amaka had been sending from Lagos, month after month, year after year. The money had reached the accounts. Amaka slowly leaned closer. She had been telling the truth all along, but then Adaeze noticed something else. Almost every deposit was followed by a withdrawal. Amaka frowned. Who withdrew the money? Adaeze continued checking. Then she found the receiving account. Amaka's breathing changed. She looked at Adaeze. "Whose account is that?" Adaeze gave her the answer. "It belongs to your uncle." Uncle Obinna. Amaka couldn't speak. For a moment, she simply stared at the records. Outside the bank, Amaka stood completely still. She held the documents tightly against her chest. 6 years. 6 years of waking up early. 6 years of working. 6 years of denying herself things. And while she was doing all that, someone close to her had been taking the money. Amaka looked toward the busy street. Then she whispered, "So this is what happened." When Amaka returned home, Uncle Obinna was sitting outside. He looked at her. She looked at him. Neither said anything. Amaka walked past him. But this time, she wasn't coming home as the confused daughter. She was coming home with evidence. Later, Amaka found Chinedu alone. She sat beside him. "Chinedu, tell me the truth." The young man looked away. "About what?" "The money." Chinedu became silent. Amaka waited. Finally, he whispered, "I saw the alerts, Amaka." Her heart sank. "What alerts?" "The money you sent." Chinedu explained everything. The money alerts would arrive on Mama Nneka's phone, but Uncle Obinna would often take control of the situation. Money would be withdrawn. Some of it would disappear, and whenever Chinedu asked questions, he was threatened. Amaka looked at her younger brother. "So you knew?" Chinedu lowered his head. "I was scared," Amaka sighed. "Oh, Chinedu." For a moment, she had nothing else to say. Suddenly, they heard footsteps. Chinedu quickly put the phone away. Amaka looked toward the door. Uncle Obinna appeared. He stared at both of them. "What are you two discussing?" Nobody answered. The silence said enough. Uncle Obina stepped closer. Amaka, don't start creating problems in this house. Amaka looked directly at him. This time, she wasn't afraid. I haven't created any problem, Uncle Obina. She paused. I came home and discovered one. The room became silent. The confrontation finally happened at dinner. Mama Neka sat at the table. Chinedu sat beside her. Uncle Obina sat across from Amaka. Then Amaka placed a thick folder on the table. Thud. Everyone looked at it. Mama Neka frowned. What is that? Amaka opened the folder. The truth. Amaka spread the bank records across the table. These are the transfers I made. Mama Neka picked up one of the papers, then another. Her eyes moved from the documents to Amaka. Where did you get these? The bank. Amaka pointed at the records. And these withdrawals? Silence. Look at the account receiving the money. Mama Neka looked. Her face changed. Mama Neka slowly turned toward Uncle Obina. Obina, he didn't answer. Is this your account? Still nothing. Amaka watched him. The room suddenly felt smaller. Mama Neka looked at her brother again. Did you take Amaka's money? Uncle Obina finally spoke. I can explain. Amaka gave a small, almost disbelieving chuckle. Explain 6 years. Uncle Obina started talking about debts. He talked about responsibilities. He talked about financial pressure. He claimed he was only trying to manage the family, but Amaka shook her head. You didn't manage my money. She looked him directly in the eyes. You took it. Her voice was calm, but every word landed heavily. Then Chinedu stood up. His hands were shaking. I saw the messages. Everyone looked at him. Chinedu continued. I saw the money alert. I knew Uncle Obina was withdrawing the money. Uncle Obina stared at him. Chinedu. But this time, the young man didn't back down. I was afraid of you before. He paused. But I'm not keeping quiet anymore. Mama Neka slowly stood up. She looked at her daughter, then at her brother. Her voice was trembling. All these years, she wiped her face. I believed you. Uncle Obina tried to speak, but Mama Neka raised her hand. Leave my house. The room became completely silent. Amaka knew the matter couldn't end there. She had spent 6 years sacrificing for her family. She wasn't going to let the truth disappear again, so she took the evidence to the police. At the station, they met Officer Amaka. He carefully examined the documents. One transaction after another, one withdrawal after another, everything connected. Officer Amaka questioned Uncle Obina. At first, he denied everything. No, officer, you don't understand. But Officer Amaka calmly placed the records in front of him. These transactions lead to your account. Uncle Obina became quiet. The excuses were disappearing. The evidence was speaking louder than he could. The questioning continued. Uncle Obina finally lowered his head. He admitted it. He had taken the money. He had used it to settle personal debts and expenses. Amaka sat quietly across the room. She had imagined this moment, but now that it had arrived, she didn't feel victorious. She simply felt tired. Officer Amaka explained the possible consequences. Amaka had every reason to demand the harshest punishment. After all, her brother's education had suffered. Her mother's health had suffered. Her own life had been sacrificed. But Amaka thought carefully. She wanted justice. She also wanted to recover what could still be recovered. So she chose a formal restitution agreement. Uncle Obina agreed to repay the recoverable money. His remaining property would be used to cover part of what he had taken. Everything would be documented. No more secret arrangements. No more family excuses. No more pretending. Uncle Obina finally signed the agreement. And just like that, the man who once controlled the family's finances had lost that power. Months passed. Slowly, the family began to rebuild. The roof was finally repaired properly. The house looked different, not because it had become luxurious, but because it finally felt safe again. Amaka stood inside the house and looked around. For the first time in years, she could breathe. Chinedu's education also improved. He received the books and support he had been missing. One evening, Amaka found him studying at the table. She smiled softly. So, Mr. Scholar, Chinedu looked up. Don't start. Amaka gave a little chuckle. So now you have confidence. Chinedu laughed, and for the first time, their laughter didn't feel forced. Mama Neka was finally able to receive proper medical treatment. One afternoon, Amaka sat beside her mother's hospital bed. Mama Neka reached for her daughter's hand. Amaka, yes, Mama, I should have believed you. Amaka looked at her. There was a long silence. Then she squeezed her mother's hand. I just wanted you to be okay. Later, Amaka and Mama Neka sat outside their repaired home. The evening breeze moved gently through the compound. Mama Neka looked at her daughter. "You sacrificed so much for us." Amaka smiled faintly. "I would do anything for my family." She paused. "But next time," she chuckled softly, "maybe somebody else should check the bank account." Mama Neka laughed, and that small laugh carried something they had not felt in a long time: peace. Chinedu eventually joined them. He stood beside his mother and sister. The three of them looked at the repaired house. It wasn't perfect. The family wasn't perfect, and the wounds from the betrayal hadn't completely disappeared, but they were healing together. Amaka stood alone in the compound the next morning. She looked at the repaired roof. She remembered the young woman who had left for Lagos 6 years earlier. That woman had believed that loving a family meant sacrificing everything. Now she understood something different. Love doesn't mean allowing people to take advantage of you. Love doesn't mean staying silent when something is wrong. And forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting the truth. Amaka walked slowly toward the house. She had lost money. She had lost trust. She had lost 6 years believing everything was fine. But she had gained something too: courage. She had learned to ask questions. She had learned to demand evidence. And most importantly, she had learned to stand up for herself. Amaka stood with Mama Neka and Chinedu in front of their home. 3 people who had been divided by lies, now standing together again. The sun rose over the compound. Amaka looked at her family. She had gone to Lagos to provide for them. She had returned home looking for answers. And in the end, she found the truth. The truth had cost her dearly, but it had also saved her family from living inside a lie forever. Because sometimes, the person you trust the most can be the person hiding the biggest secret. Sometimes your sacrifice can be taken for granted, and sometimes, when everyone tells you that you're wrong, you have to trust yourself enough to look for the evidence. Amaka did, and when she found the truth, she refused to stay silent. If you were in Amaka's position, would you forgive Uncle Obina after he admitted everything, or would you demand full punishment? Tell me in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us for more powerful African stories.